The 2017 edition of the World Investment Summit on Education-Wise ended today in Doha, Qatar, with a message of resilience, inspiration and hope to the youth from this year's WISE laureate Patrick Awuah and Nigeria's award-winning author Chimamanda Adichie. My colleague Bukola Samuel-Wemimo joins me now via Skype for the day's proceedings. Bukola, good to see you.
Yes, good to see you too, Fadi.
Now, what were the highlights of the two-day deliberations?
Yes, Fadi, it's been a very long day, 2 days of deliberations, but productive deliberations. I'll start with the opening day, where Patrick Awuah of Ghana emerged winner of the WISE Prize laureate. And Patrick Awuah, by the way, is the first person of color to win this award, and this reinforces the narrative of the World Investment Summit on Education being a summit on education global in narrative, unlike others in the world. And of course, I'll also talk about the high points of the messages coming from the summit in the last 2 to 3 days, which is about the need to stop the controlled narrative on the factors responsible for conflict in areas war-torn around the world. This was the message that resonated from Highness Sheikh Musa bin Nasser, who opened the conference 2 days back on education. She talked about how since the social media revolution around the world, there's been a lot of propaganda, rumors, and alternative facts published as being responsible for conflict in areas of war around the world, which also, by extension, affects education. And let's now talk about the facts, the consequences, which you heard from the Ghanaian president. I'll just mention a few of the facts. Out of 65.6 million refugees around the world, 23 million are youths under the age of 18. And of course, 50% of refugees being children lack access to education. These are some of the grim facts arising from the speech coming from the Ghanaian president. And he also talked about how education will be the driver of development across the world. Now let's look at some of the other sessions. Of course, these talking point didn't end with the opening session for day 2 of the conference. Some of the other sessions also highlighted on barriers to funding, budgeting for gender-based education in the world. At this session, what was most important for the panelists was how women and children who are in conflict areas lack access to education, and they resort to, some of them, marrying terrorists because they would rather not have many terrorists being their sexual partners, being gang raped by terrorists. These were some of the stories, heart-wrenching stories that came from those sessions. And the resolution was that governments must demonstrate the political will to increase funding for education in conflict areas as a matter of right, not as a matter of luck, as talked about by the 23-year-old youth advocate, Asfa Kifri. So these are some of the high points of the 2-day conference of the World Investment Summit on Education 2017 edition. Fadi?
Very quickly now, the last WISE took place in 2015. What has changed since the last conference?
A very good question there. And, the talking point also at this conference is that there's a conference fatigue around the world on the problems bedeviling education. And so what has changed? As a matter of fact, the truth of the matter is very little has changed, because we have just about 2% reduction. And he cited the Qatari example to me. He talked about how 10 years ago there was lack of development in this country, but now the investments in education are massive. If you visit the Qatari State University, the university community is as huge as indeed some of the small cities around the world, which according to him is pretty impressive. And he says the message that must be exported is to follow the Qatari example and increased investment in education, calling on governments around the world to demonstrate the political will by increasing investments in education. Fadi.
Well, the summit is over. Hurry back, Bukola. My colleague there, Bukola Samuel-Wemimo, at the World Investment Summit on Education in Doha. Thank you.
Thank you, Fadi.